All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Zuleika. I'm the head of clinical services at Minty, and we are so honored to have all of you here as part of our webinar today. As you can see on the board, Lewis has done the honor of, we've got a wonderful hour planned ahead. And I'm going to talk a little bit now about Mint Tea. I just want to give you all a little bit of insight. Mint Tea is a mental health application. Many of you are already our esteemed members. What we do is we provide you with mental health resources, support, and therapists. So you can access our platform for all of your mental health needs. If you're looking for generalized support and information on a particular disorder or a particular illness or just your general wellness stat on the app. You can even on the app. So you can, if you already have a therapist or you are looking for a therapist, then you can access all of our therapist profiles. We've got a wonderful team and you can book your sessions in right there. Minty operates under this vision of making mental health care accessible, affordable, and make it so that you're able to access resources very easily and in one place. I know what it feels like to be looking for something related to anxiety and you're surfing the net and you're looking for all of these different things. The idea with Minty is you can find everything in one place. So some great news, we have our subscription is available for everybody until the end of this year. It has been extended. So we had initially that the subscription was available to everyone till October, but in honor of World Mental Health Day, we've decided to extend that to December. So it would be lovely if you're not already our subscribers, then please do download the app. We're available on Google and on Android and on Apple. So please do download the app and please do become our subscribers. All right. So today we've got a really wonderful hour planned for you, and our topic is on emotional well-being and how to manage your emotions. We've got Lois Mathews here with us today. Lois, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Zuleika. I hope you can hear me well. And thank you so much for having me.
Of course, of course. We're really honored to have you here. So Lois is a licensed psychologist. She's also a certified art therapist, and she works with individuals who are struggling with their mental health. She comes with a an incredible amount of experience and an incredible amount of expertise and knowledge. Her degree, she's both DHA licensed and CDA licensed. And one thing in particular that's very important to her is being culturally competent. So she is someone who will take your culture into account. She is someone who understands that we don't exist, we're not individuals existing in isolation. We're a part of something, we're a part of communities. And, she takes that into account in her therapy sessions. In addition to that she's a certified clinical trauma specialist. And she works directly with individuals who have been affected by some form of trauma. I don't want to take away too much of your time, Lewis. I'm going to let you get started on a really, really important topic. And I'm very excited to see what you have to share with us.
Thank you so much, Zuleika, for that wonderful introduction. And I'm humbled, really. And thank you so much to Minty and the team for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be here.
Webinars.
Sorry. I didn't quite hear that. But whatever questions that any of you would be having, do feel free to put them in the chat. And unfortunately, I cannot read it right now, but towards the end of it, I would be reading it and trying to answer it as well. And I do look forward to the Q&A session. All right, so.
Yes, I'm going to say a note on that. Sorry, Lewis, to interrupt you, but at the end of the session, there will be space for questions. So please pop your messages in the chat. If you have any ideas throughout, pop that in the chat as well. We will come to you and we will have the discussion. Okay?
Absolutely. All right. Because all of your questions mean a lot to us. And let's destigmatize this entire concept. All right. So without further ado, let's get started. So today I'll be talking a little bit about emotional well-being and self-regulation, as the heading says. And, it's funny because I was talking about this particular topic with one of my peers, and I just asked them, what do they understand by self-regulation? And they gave me the feedback was that it's about discipline. And I was surprised that they didn't know what it meant. And that was where, okay, I understood that there needs to be a little bit more awareness about this particular topic. There needs to be a little bit more talking done about regulating yourself. All right. So today, what the agenda for today is going to be about what is emotional well-being, trying to define it a bit, trying to understand this concept. So the emotional well-being, we have a vague idea of what it is. We don't have the words to put it into. We just have it's a concept that's there in the back of our head. And what I would be doing is defining it, telling you or outlining the dimensions of emotional well-being, talking about emotional distress or dysregulation, also certain life. And then we would be going into the self-regulation part. So in the same way, in the self-regulation part as well, we would be defining it, kind of understanding why it matters, what are some of its elements, and then moving on to the fun part, which is how do I build the technique? How do I build the skill of self-regulation? All right. So first of all, I would like to wish you all a very happy and prosperous mental health day and a year ahead. I hope each and every one of you take actionable steps to take care of your mental health, and that may be in whatever shape, form, or size. So I'm just putting it out there and wishing all of you the best for your mental health journey. All right, so let's get started on emotional well-being. So there's already tons of research out there, scientific research, let me state, on how important mental health is. And right now, in today's day and age, there is countless platforms that talks about the importance and awareness of mental health. Now, scientific research links emotional health to physical health. Now, this is interesting, all right, because there's a bidirectional connection. And when I say a bidirectional connection, what I mean is that your physical health impacts your mental health, and your mental health impacts your physical health. So, there's this kind of a direction that's happening in terms of mental health and physical health. Now, this academic poster over here, all right, is a wonderful diagram given by Pressman and Cohen. And this model kind of, it very subtly, or rather very wonderfully explains how positive experiences which occur in the mental health realm affects our physical health. So let me break this image down without, much jargon. So positive affect basically is positive feelings and experiences that an individual has, the extent of their positive feelings and experiences. Now, that affects or has an influence on a person's health practices, such as their quality of sleep, or their physical exercise, or they are able to have a balanced diet when they're more in a positive state, which in turn leads to increased mortality and low morbidity, which basically means that you have prolonged life, and the quality of your life also increases. So having positive experiences and positive feelings does that to our physical health. Let's look at the next box. For example, positive experiences and feelings also affect our autonomic nervous system. Now, this is a little biology here. Bear with me, everybody. All right. So the ANS, which is your autonomic nervous system, which is part of your peripheral nervous system, which means it takes care of the internal processes that is there in your body. All right. So when you have positive experiences and when you have positive feelings, all right, it affects your automatic nervous system, all right. where you have reduced heart rate or reduced blood pressure, or let's just say certain hormones that get released into your bloodstream, like epinephrine or adrenaline, it reduces that, which reduces your flight and fight syndrome. All right. And when it talks about HPA axis, your HPA axis is basically your hypothalamic pituitary adrenaline axis, which produces cortisol. And I hope all of you know what cortisol is, because right now it's trending. It's the trending hormone that's there on the internet. So cortisol basically is a hormone that is released when you have a lot of stress. So if you have positive experiences and positive feelings, let's just say to a large extent, it reduces the stress levels that you have and increases the oxytocin hormone, which you have in your body, which is necessary for you to build social relationships. And that's the other box that's there on this screen. So your positive affect affects your health practices. It affects your flight or fight system. It affects your social relationships. It also affects your feel-good hormones, which is your endorphins, which is part of the endogenous opioids. So, and your feel-good hormones are secreted when you're really, let's just say, happy, or you're laughing, or you're excited. And all of these boxes or all of these systems come together. And when you have positive feelings and experiences, it reduces all of the imbalances that is there in the nervous system and increased immune functioning, which in turn leads to less number of diseases. So that's the wonderful way in which your mental health affects your physical health as well. So I hope you all got a little idea of what I was talking about. And if there was too much biology in it, I apologize. All right. So coming to the most important part. What is then emotional well-being? I explained that mental health has a link to your physical health. So it means that we can start somewhere. We can start taking care of the mental health, all right? And we can start being emotionally well. So what does it mean? It means basically that it's a multidimensional concept. So it has multiple factors, all right? And it reflects how positively a person feels about their life, about their experiences. All right, so it has moment-to-moment experiences, and the quality of those moments also matter. It also has reflective features where you evaluate, you judge, you try to understand and try to learn from your reflections. So the positive experiences that you have also happens in your day-to-day living, which is basically the culture from where you're from, the life circumstances that you're attributed to, let's just say the personal development that you have over a period of time, the available resources to you, which might be your financial stability, your education, your healthcare, and so on. All right, so it's a little bit of basically it's a very
something TV.
So it's basically a very multi-dimensional concept, which reflects how positive a person can feel and how positively they can experience their life. All right. So since I said that it's a multi-dimensional concept, let's look a little bit into the various dimensions. All right. And this is just for our understanding. This is just to kind of give you an idea of like, okay, if I take care of one aspect of my emotional well-being, other things will fall in line even if I don't do too much amount of work into it. I still have to do the work, but not too much, because all of this is complexly interconnected. All right. So firstly, let's look at self-acceptance. Now, in self-acceptance, we have, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about the aspects of yourself. Do you acknowledge the qualities that you have as a person? And let's just say that it's more about how dissatisfied or how troubled you are about certain qualities and aspects that you have about yourself, how willing you are to see the dimensions of you. All right, that's a little bit about self-acceptance. Eudaimonia, now that's a very fancy word for flourishing. All right, it's the Greek word for flourishing, and basically it just means to feel a sense of happiness and to feel a sense of blessedness. It's more in terms of having a sense of, let's just say, having a sense of meaning. So if a person feels that they have a sense of meaning, they have a sense of purpose, a goal exists in their life to which they keep continuously moving forward to. And that makes them feel really happy and flourished in their life, right? So the next one is personal growth. Now here you make improvements in your behavior. You make changes in your actions. You make reflections. You try to evaluate. You try to reflect continuously about whatever you are doing in your environment. All right. And that is something that increases your self-awareness and really helps you in terms of personal growth. So you see yourself continuously expanding or transforming or being open to new experiences. All right. And then let's just move into life satisfaction. So life satisfaction is very self-explanatory in the sense that you start evaluating your life, you start reflecting on your life, and you see that, okay, this and this is going well for me, and this is making me content in life. So you alter the way that you perceive certain actions, behavior, people, circumstances, and that in turn, again, personal growth, which I mentioned, these are all interconnected and very complex. So when you work on one, the other one also gets done. So the next one is autonomy. Now, that is very much understood in terms of autonomy is like a synonym for freedom. You feel a sense of freedom. You feel a sense of independence. You are not subject to social pressures of how people perceive you or how people think about you. You do not try to bend your principles or your values according to what people want from you. Rather, you decide how to act and be and create standards for yourself. That is more of what autonomy is. Now, very interestingly, environmental mastery is a dimension of emotional well-being, which basically is the external world, and when we talk about mental health, and when we talk about emotional well-being, we don't usually focus on the external world because we believe that control should always come from within. But this is not completely controlled to the external world, but it's more of how adaptable are you? It's more of how competent are you? Are you competent enough to manage your everyday tasks or functioning or situations? Do you utilize the different opportunities that your external world gives you, or are you not able to? Are you not able to be, let's just say, you're not able to use the opportunities that come to you in your environment? Right? Or you're not able to feel a sense of change or improvement in your behaviors in relation to your environment. All right. So that's a little bit about the environmental mastery, which is you feel a sense of control over the external factors that happen to you or the external conditions that happen to you. Now, hedonic well-being is just, again, it's a fancy word, but all it means is that you meet your pleasurable and happiness needs. So that means, you get into, you're able to buy materialistic things or just go to the movies. Or let's just say, you're able to get one of the bags that you really wanted to get for a very, very long time. So it's fulfilling your pleasurable needs, basically. That's one of the dimensions. Now, the last dimension is the positive relationship that we have with people. So social connection is a very important dimension of emotional well-being. And here you should be able to build trusting relationships with people. You should be able to have warmth and empathy and care for people as well. And understanding the dynamic of these relationships of social connectedness is important to emotional well-being, because then you are able to have a give and take relationship. You're able to compromise in social settings as well. So that's a little bit about dimensions, and I hope I didn't bore you with the theory. All right. Okay. So now we move into the most important part, which is emotional distress. Okay. Now, these are just pictures because it's extremely self-explanatory. And emotional distress is basically something that imbalances our mental health or our emotional well-being. All right. So, for example, when we have a sore throat, all right, we feel the itchiness, we feel so annoyed and frustrated that I have a sore throat. I'm not able to swallow even water, or I'm not able to eat food in general, and I'm just annoyed. All right. And that develops to people as well, because as I'm speaking to people, my throat is getting dry. It's a mess. Right. So in a very small scale, we have a little bit of dysregulation. But let's blow that up. All right, let's blow that up to actually having a physical illness where you're struck by something and you're not able to, let's just say, manage the physical illness. For example, you get hurt and your arm is dislocated, or you're having a sprain, or you're having a ligament fracture of some sort, and you're in pain. All right, you're not able to utilize that particular body part, so you're not able to achieve any of your goals that you have. And again, all of this is kind of leading you to have poor quality of life. All right. So another example of emotional distress would be when you have conflicts with your partner, or when you have conflicts with your friends or your peers. There is a lot of misunderstanding that instigates trauma responses for people as well. They feel like, oh, like I shouldn't be angry, but I am angry. And this is all coming out. All right. And they have guilt, they have shame, they are misunderstood, and that completely dysregulates your entire nervous system as well. Let's just say when you have moments of where you're actually just alone in your apartment or in your room, and you're on your phone, you're scrolling, and you see somebody going out and having a really good time with their friends, and all of a sudden this impending doom comes upon you, where you feel like, oh, I'm so alone and I have nobody to lean on, and I'm completely isolated. And that dysregulates our system as well, because we feel intense sadness, we feel like crying, we feel like I don't understand what is happening to me. So there are multiple things that happen to us, right, that dysregulates us, like trauma, like discrimination, like let's just say negative childhood experiences as well, and financial pressure. So all of these things are examples of how we can get emotionally dysregulated and we can go into emotional distress. Now, a very current example that I can give you is some of you might be in traffic and you might be stuck and you cannot do anything about that situation. So you're frustrated. So we're dysregulated in that moment. All right. So how do we calm that balance? Right? And the answer is self-regulation. So whenever there is an imbalance, we have to understand that we have the power, we have the control. So we're taking the control back, we're taking the reins back, and we're self-regulating or emotionally regulating ourselves. So I'm going to be using self-regulation and emotion regulation interchangeably, all right? So they're both the same. Okay, so now let's talk about self-regulation. Now we looked at emotional well-being, the dimensions of it, and what kind of triggers in our normal environment can create dysregulation. So now we need to look at what is self-regulation, all right? And the first thing that I want to emphasize is that it is a process. Self-regulation does not happen one day. It is a long process, all right? But you get there step by step. So basically, it's a long process rather, all right, where it takes a lot of practice to get good at. So we have the power to influence when we have an emotion. What kind of emotion do I want to feel? How do I want to experience it? How do I want to express it? These are all the aspects of emotion regulation. And the process can be either automatic, or it can be deliberate, it can be conscious, or it can be unconscious, and it can have an effect, or it can have, let's just say, it can have an influence in the entire process, or it can have an effect in the beginning of the process, which is basically like, for example, let's just say, you try to try to regulate yourself in terms of, let's just say, presenting something, all right, in a classroom, all right. So in the beginning of the presentation, you feel really anxious, and you're trying to, regulate yourself by breathing, by kind of walking around, by talking to your friends, and you feel a sense of calm. You feel like, okay, like now I'm not so tense. But then when you stand up on the stage, and again, that feeling comes back around, and you just start remembering, okay, like I can breathe through it, I can get through it, I know my content, and again, you get regulated. So it happens at different points of time throughout the emotion generating process, right? So that's a little bit about the effects and what it is. All right. Now, why does it matter? That all of you do understand why it matters, but let's break it down in terms of like an example. All right. So for instance, let's think about a boy who has a little bit of an eye problem with one of his eyes. He's not able to see properly. It's disfigured in some way. All right. Now, what happens to that boy throughout his entire life? He's just a child. All right. But he also has mental health. He also has emotional well-being. So he's going to be treated very, very differently in terms of people are going to look at him in a different way. They're going to give him a different look. All right. And everybody knows that different look. So he's going to be treated in a very different way. He's going to also be the talk of some conversations. For example, when he goes to the grocery store, somebody might come up to him like, okay, I don't understand what's wrong. Or people might look at him and talk to somebody else about him as well. All right. Which in turn creates a lot of anxiety, which in turn creates a lot of low self-esteem, because the boy starts questioning, is there actually something wrong with me? Is there a flaw with me? And why don't people approach me normally? All right. And that difference, the way how people treat him differently, or the fact that he has this, and how people are perceiving it, makes him feel anxious, makes him feel like he's not confident enough, or he's not worthy enough. And these all increases his mental health symptomology, all right, which leads to a lot of anxiety and depression. Now, since all of these symptoms are increasing, it hinders his ability to pursue certain specific goals that he has as a child. For example, he might have goals of excelling in academics. He might have goals of experiencing new experiences, or going to new places, or meeting new people, making lots of friends. But all of that is hindered because of the low self-esteem that he has, the anxiety that he feels, the mental health issues that have come up now, so his mental health symptomology has increased, his goals are being hindered, and now his personality is also affected, because he's now become this shell of a person who does not have anything attached to his personality other than the flaw that he keeps thinking about, which is his eye. And now that's become like a huge insecurity. So he feels less open, he feels more insecure, he does not have an optimistic view of people, or of experiences, or of life in general, and he becomes less flexible and adaptable. So when you are that sort of a personality, you are not able to fulfill your basic pleasurable needs. So that means you don't get to be, let's just say, your insecurity takes precedence in each moment. So you're not able to just hang out with your friends, or you're not able to get into a relationship, or when you go to buy something, you immediately see somebody staring at you in a different way and you just drop it. You're like, no, I don't want to deal with this. I go home. So you go into isolation, and all of this impacts the quality of your life. So you can see why self-regulation is so important, because if he would have self-regulated at any point of time during this process, he would be able to still deal with his present. He would still be able to unfreeze or get unstuck and keep going and keep breaking through the barriers of emotional well-being. So self-regulation is extremely important because it affects all of these areas. All right. So now, before we go into the techniques, I do want to just explain this tiny little slide, which basically is talking about the emotion generating systems that's there within our bodies, within our mind. All right. And this is the emotion generating system is the internal processes that create emotions within us. So there are three basic systems. They're not all of the systems. I just took these three because this is easy. Techniques are also related to this. So the first one is attention. Now, attention it's so simple, all right, which is, but biologically or like scientifically, when you explain it, it's the neurological networks that we have through which we are able to select whatever information is coming to us through our sensory inputs. So your sensory inputs is basically your eyes, your nose, your ears, your mouth, your skin. All right. So your five sense organs. So you're able to select the information that is coming through these systems. So you are able to choose, okay, what do I want to see? What do I want to hear? What do I want to feel? All right. So that is attention in simple words. Then we move on to knowledge. Now, knowledge involves emotion creation from your past experiences or just learned information in general that shapes our understanding of how the world works in general, or how certain emotions are created and how certain situations are perceived. All right. So our subjective interpretation about certain events or about certain situations and about certain emotionally significant events. All right, that is a part that contributes to the knowledge emotion generating system. And it is important because once you have the awareness of what is going on in my let's just say in my mind or in my body or outside me, we are able to take control of the emotions that we feel. All right, let me explain to you in terms of an example. So we all know that, like when we're babies and when we're really small, we all know that you shouldn't touch hot stuff because everybody says that you'll get hurt. Now you grow up, you have an experience that you touched something hot, really hot, and you got a little bit of a burn. So now you have a past experience and you have the learned information that has created the emotion of fear and distance. You don't want to deal with that situation. And you feel afraid whenever you're kind of talking about, going near the fire or touching something hot. Now, let's just say you have a new goal in life, which is you want to learn how to cook. All right. So this is difficult because you continuously have to be around hot stuff and fire and oil, and that's bubbling and bursting. All right. So it is directly affecting the emotion that you're having, that you have learned from your past. So how do you deal with that situation, right? So once you change the interpretation or your subjective interpretation, all right, and we will get to this in the technique part, which is basically you learn that, okay, not every time I touch something hot, I'm going to get burned. I just have to be a little bit careful, right? And that I can cook on low heat. I don't have to cook everything in deep fry right now. I can take it step by step. And that immediately changes the the configuration that's there in your brain, which is you don't feel fear, you start to feel a little bit more courage, a little bit more competent, a little bit more brave. So slowly your emotions start to change. All right. And that's the knowledge generating emotion system. Your body is also an emotion generating system where in terms of like numerous amounts of emotions are produced by our body through facial expressions, body postures, physiological responses, and so much more. So the techniques that I will be talking about will be related to each and every one of the system. All right. So let's get into the part. Yeah. So let's get into the self-regulation techniques. All right. And this is the most important part. So I am not going to be categorizing any of the techniques as good or bad. I'm just going to be talking about them in terms of, and you can decide for yourself as well what is applicable towards you. But basically, all of these techniques are categorized in terms of short term and long term. Can I use this short term? Can I use this long term? All right, that's the only categorization that I've given. So let's just say repressive coping. All right, let's start with repressive coping, which is us downplaying certain emotions. So there are some people who downplay certain emotions, like negative emotions that they have because they don't want to deal with it. So that is basically they avoid feeling that negative emotion. Their bodies are always aware of whenever there is a little bit of negativity around because their body immediately reacts to it and their mind takes control. Their mind takes control and says that, okay, we're going to completely avoid that situation. We're going to deny that we have any anxiety in this situation. All right. So when the threat levels are high, these people try to find positive instances in their life, positive things in their environment, just so that they can take the focus away from negativity. Now, when the threat levels are low, they just avoid the situation altogether. All right. They don't actively look for anything positive. Now, you might tell me, like, isn't that a good thing? Like, they're looking for positive things in their life. It's not so good because they're not really dealing with the situation. They're just blurring the negativity out and trying to look for the positive. So it's a very short-term goal. It's a very short-term emotion regulation strategy because it does not really help you grow in any way. It just suppresses everything that you're feeling. All right. So for example, when you break up with somebody, you don't want to deal with the pain of the breakup. So you immediately try to distract yourself or you immediately try to repress all of those emotions by just going out with your friends or not talking about it, not trying to work through what happened, why it got here. All right. Then let's move on to defensiveness. Right. So I'm sure that everyone gets defensive and there's, again, like I said, there's nothing wrong in what we're doing. It's because the body has its own natural way of regulating itself. It does not know that this is bad, this is good for me. It just knows that I have to come back to equilibrium. All right. And we have to do the active work to make the body understand or the mind understand that, okay, this is short term. This is not going to be useful for me long-term wise. All right. So in defensiveness, what happens basically is where someone is always trying to justify themselves or justify their actions, their words. They try to protect their understanding of the concept through their words and through their behaviors. So this can happen by either selective criticism or they make sure that they forget certain kinds of information. They trivialize certain information that they get. So when a person is defensive, they're just trying to grasp at straws to maintain their equilibrium, right? They're trying to maintain the concepts that they have in their mind so that they don't lose control and they don't have a complete negative impact So an example would be, let's just say at your workplace, your boss is giving you some feedback and you're only hearing the criticism part of things and you react to it saying that, hey, I'm doing a good job. I don't know if like other people are not doing their work. That's on them. They don't know how to communicate. I know, all I know is that I'm doing really great. And in this situation, if we're trying to deflect from responsibility, then it's defensiveness. But if we're trying to actually communicate to them saying that, hey, that's not my work, I was not informed of this, or I was not responsible for any of this, then it's drawing boundaries. So there's a thin line of difference between defensiveness and drawing boundaries. So whenever we're trying to justify or whenever we're trying to deflect from our understanding of things, just so that we can keep control, maintain some level of control and not feel completely negative, we're defending our right. And the third using is intentional uses this. All right. Conflict, and you don't want to be part of the conflict anymore. So you get distracted, either start looking, or you start, you take your phone, you get distracted. Let's just say even in normal day-to-day living, you're just trying to, you're just going about your entire day and you feel like what I have to do. And this impending doom again sets in that, oh, there's a lot of responsibilities that I have to do and I have to be productive and I have no motivation. Let me just take out my phone and get distracted. Yeah. So it's how we regulate ourselves. All right. And it's short-lived because we still have to deal with the work that we have to do. All right. Another example would be when you're going into an interview, all right, and you're having an uncomfortable conversation with the employer, or you're feeling anxious, you avert your eyes, you get distracted. So it's it's very unconscious processes also that distract you. Now, like I mentioned, distraction can be unfocused and it can be focused distractions as well. For example, you're having, let's just take the example of the interview itself. You're having the interview, and I'm sorry, you're going to the interview, and before the interview, there, you're telling your friend that I'm anxious, and she's just telling you, don't focus on it. And that doesn't help in any way if they just tell you to, like, not focus on the anxiety and tell you to focus somewhere else. But focused distractions do help, where somebody starts explaining to you, okay, think about, a red car that is just driving down the road and it's going to the beach and it's parked at this beautiful spot where you can see the entire ocean, or you can see the entire sea, you can see the waves, and it's not such a bright day, it's not such a dim day, you can feel a little bit of breeze. Now you're thinking about that. All right. And this is one of the techniques that really helps to kind of get us out of a particular emotionally distressful situation. So distractions that are really helpful in terms of bringing down mental health symptoms like anxiety, depression, trauma, or other emotions is jigsaw puzzles, Sudoku, playing cards, listening to music, trying to spell words backwards. These are few of the little bit of activities that kind of helps us in terms of distracting ourselves skillfully, all right, and maintaining equilibrium. Now, this is also kind of an interlinked, this is a different technique. This is called accepts from dialectical behavioral therapy, which is a scientific way of dealing with emotional dysregulation. All right. So in terms of accepts, A stands for activities. So just focus your attention onto tasks like cleaning the room or getting some chore done or listening to music. All right. And then the first C is to contribute. So here you do something thoughtful for somebody else, where you like help a family member out or go for volunteering, or something that kind of contributes to somebody else a little bit outside of you. All right. And the second C is comparisons. You make comparisons of yourself to a different point of time where you were not in a good state, but now you are in a much better place, or you compare yourself to less fortunate people. All right. And E stands for emotions, where basically you're allowing yourself to feel emotions, but not just one. You try to feel different emotions. So let's just say you start watching scary movies or comedies, or you start reading things, or you start listening to music that's funny or that's exciting, that gets you a little bit passionate. All right. So you start to feel, I mean, the skill is basically to expose yourself to varied kind of emotions. And here comes the difficult part where you're trying to push away. All right. You're trying to push the dysregulating thought or the dysregulating situation away from you. So what you're doing is you're blocking the emotion that you're feeling, but trying to visualize like, okay, there's a wall between me and this emotion, or you're trying to say out loud, like, no, I'm not going to think about it right now. There is a time for it, and I will think about it at that time. All right. So that's you kind of pushing away that particular emotion. And to occupy your thoughts, that's the most important part, where like the emotion also creeps in. So you either start counting, or you start counting the different colors that's there in a painting. All right. Or you count how many times red appears in this room. Or let's just say that you start listening to a particular song and trying to understand the words that they're saying. You're just trying to get your mind engaged in something else. And sensations, where you're also trying to touch and feel things, because that also helps us forget the current situation that we're exposed to. For example, you start, squeezing your fingers into your palms. All right. If you have what's it called? A stress ball. All right. So you start squeezing the ball, or you touch a hot cup of coffee, or you take a cold shower. These are all the different sensations that you just want to feel to get grounded, basically. All right. So another good technique, and this is one of my favorite techniques, is reframing. All right. Now, this is a technique that's borrowed from CBT. How it basically works, and this picture gives a very good example of how it works, is that you're changing how you think about the exact same situation. All right. So, for example, you and your friend, or you and your partner having a conversation, and as you're conversing with each other, a line comes up that, okay, nobody likes me. And we don't pay attention to these let's just say lines that we tell ourselves. All right. But it sticks with us in our mind. It goes deep into our subconscious. So the line is that nobody likes me. All right. Now, how do we reframe that? This is what we do in therapy. We try to reframe the exact same line. All right. So nobody likes me. It doesn't make sense, does it? Because 8 billion people can't not like you. All right. So it's not that nobody likes me. It's that some people don't like me. All right. So now we have come down. The intensity of the emotion has reduced to, okay, some people don't like me. Now, what was the conversation before this? Like, what was I having? What was the conversation about with my partner? We were talking about a specific person, and then it led to another person. And the conversation dropped after that. We changed the topic. So we're really talking about 2 people don't like me now. All right. And the rest of the people in my life, they like me, they appreciate me. All right. So only these 2 people don't like me. All right. That's what we've come to now. So the intensity of the emotion has reduced drastically. And then we move on to, okay, it's not that nobody likes me, or some people don't like me, or only 2 people don't like me. It's that a lot of people appreciate me. You see how over the course of time, you have reduced the intensity of that emotion just by continuously reframing. So this 2 important factors in reframing is the intensity and the frequency. This takes a lot of practice to do. And it always is, the goal of reframing is just to reduce the intensity of what words are coming out of us so that the emotions also get balanced out. All right. And then the next technique is journaling. Now, in journaling, basically, it's expressive writing where we have a free flow of writing. We just try to express ourselves completely about whatever events that we really want to talk about. And we delve into how does this make me feel? How do I want to go about it? Not why did this happen to me? Because that has no answer. But the question that we're trying to uh, evoke in journaling is, how do I get out of this situation? All right. So now I know that there's a lot of techniques in here, and the reason why I'm putting in all of these techniques is because there are different ways in which we can regulate ourselves. And the more number of techniques that you use, the more flexible of a person you become. All right. So if you only stick to one particular type of coping, you do not have flexibility in your thinking and behaviors. Rather, you become a very rigid person. But if you try to develop many skills and try to have a lot of feathers in your cap, you become a more flexible person. All right. So this is a lovely process of problem solving. So everyone knows that, okay, like I have to problem solve, and these are for, right? So when they see, they try to realize or they try to recognize if there is a situation and if that situation is particularly a problem, they try to define the problem. They try to understand, what is the situation? How did it get here? Who is involved? Where did it come from? All of these questions. And then they try to understand, okay, does this particular situation interfere with my goal? Because if it does not interfere with my goals, then this is not really a problem. But now that it's interfering with my goals, I have to kind of find options. I have to find alternatives. So let me create, and this is, we are trying to create at least 3 potential alternatives. Now, the reason why we're trying to create 3 potential alternatives is because we do not want to get into a black and white style of thinking. All right, a black and white style of thinking is basically all or none, which is like, okay, either the world looks like this or the world looks like the other way around. There's only 2 options. So you create a third option so that you don't go into that mode of thinking. All right, so you create at least 3 alternatives, and then you look at those alternatives. You see what are the consequences of the options that you have created, and then you try to resolve. You try to take actions to kind of understand, okay, what, let's just say, when do I take these steps? And how do I take the steps? All right. And finally, you evaluate the results. So if you're really successful in this entire problem solving, you can be thrilled. You have to acknowledge the fact that, hey, I problem solved something. All right. But if not, then it's more about trying to understand, okay, how did I not solve it? What can I do better? And then repeat all of the same steps again. All right. And finally, all right, this is my last technique, and I really love this technique, which is check the facts. All right, so I'm going to explain this with a really good example. All right, so you have to identify, and this is again a technique that's there in CBT. All right, so for people who really do want to know more about the technique, you can always reach out and let me know, and I will share all of these resources with you. All right, so checking the fact, I'm so sorry for the sound, it's my clock. All right, so the first part of checking the facts is, what is the emotion that I want to change? For example, let's just take the emotion of fear of rejection. All right, and what is the event that's prompting me to feel this particular emotion? It is, I got invited to a party. All right, but I am really nervous about going for the party. I'm really nervous about attending it. So that's what's prompting my emotions. Then you go on to like ask the next question, which is, what are my interpretations about this emotion? What are the thoughts that I'm having, or what are the assumptions that I have about this particular event? And the interpretations or the thoughts that you have is that when I go to this party, nobody will like me, nobody will be, talking to me, or nobody will understand me, and they'll just kind of ostracize me or bully me or kind of reject me. Those are the thoughts that you have about the event. Those are the assumptions that you have about the event. Then you move on to, am I assuming that there is an actual threat in this situation? And in this situation, yes, I am having a valid threat, which is I'm having a fear of being judged, a fear of being rejected. So what's the worst that can happen in this situation? That's what we mean by catastrophe. What is the worst that can happen in the situation? That I would embarrass myself and people wouldn't like me. That is the worst, right? Now comes the real facts, which is, does my emotion or its intensity fit the actual facts? So based on past experiences, based on my behavior, no, I have been a very likable person. I have enjoyed every single party that I've gone to. I have created new connections with people. So all of the emotions that I went through, the fear of rejection, the feelings of embarrassment, the feelings of anxiety, the thought of not being likable, all of that is completely negated, because the fact is that when I do go to a social event, I'm pretty good at it. I'm pretty good at connecting with people. I'm pretty good at maintaining a conversation from my past experiences. So that is how you check the facts. And these are a few of my references from the psychological research papers, right? And I hope, and thank you so much, all right, for listening to me. And if you have any questions, I'm really happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Lois. That was incredibly informative and really helpful. What I particularly liked was, you did use a lot of very practical and very relevant examples. And I think that's what we all need. We need to know, I mean, it's how it works, but how do I put that into practice? And that's what you did for us today. So thank you so much. And thank you for all of the wonderful insights that you gave us today.
Thank you so much.
So we have got a couple of questions. I'm also conscious of time. So look, if anybody wants to get in touch with Lois, please do so. Minty is also here for you. We're here to support you. Our therapists are here to support you. Please do download the app and make use of the subscription until the end of the year. We're going to have, we have quotes and affirmations that come through every day. We've got a newsletter that comes through. So we're doing a lot to make you feel connected and make sure that you feel that there is somebody out there. You are not alone in your experiences, and there is someone out there. I am conscious of time, so if anybody needs to do, but I am going to address some of the questions as well. So one of the questions that we've got is, how can we cultivate autonomy in so for example, in the workplace or the living environment?
Okay. So let's just say in workplaces, especially, the culture is that there is a hierarchy, and you have to kind of listen to what the other person says, and you don't feel a sense of freedom, right? But this is something that's important to know. All right. Like I mentioned, in autonomy, you are not subject to other people's standards. You are subject to your own standards. So if you choose to be independent in a particular situation, we also have to take responsibility for that situation. So that there lies your autonomy, because, okay, I am free to do whatever I do want to do, but I also have to be responsible for what I am doing, right? So for example, I do not want to do a particular project in this way. I want to do it in another way. I want to keep somebody else in charge. So I do communicate that. I have the freedom to communicate that. I have the freedom to express my disagreements or my opinions with that other person. So there you're exercising your freedom. And then let's just say that it gets rejected. I still do have the opinion that this person was more suitable for that role, but circumstances is not allowing me to make that person in control of the project. So I let go. I choose to let go. Again, you're exercising your autonomy over there. So that's a simple example of what
Your autonomy lies and where your control is in that situation, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Another question we've got is, what should we do if we're feeling ashamed of our emotions?
That's a lovely question. And what do you do in terms of when you're feeling ashamed of your emotions? So, shame is a very, let's just say, it's a very debilitating, all right, emotion. And there are not too many things that out there that helps with shame. And usually what, emotion regulation strategies that just normally comes from our bodies is that we try to distract ourselves, or we go into coping mechanisms to move shame away. So we go into repressive coping style as well. We try to downplay the shame. We don't want to deal with it at all because that's a very extreme emotion for our bodies. So I do think that we have to, let's just say, understand it, build self-awareness about the shame. So journaling is a really good technique where you try to understand what made you feel that way. All right. And then we start to get into, okay, this is what made me feel about that way. I try to dig deep, and that is through therapy as well. You try to have an objective, a person, try to understand your story. So usually shame and trauma is interconnected, and you really have to work with somebody who does know how to link all of these aspects together. Now, once you have linked all of that together, it's about reframing the entire concept of shame. So I feel ashamed or I feel embarrassed about something like this. What is making me feel embarrassed? Does the situation warrant me to feel embarrassed or shameful about it? So we start reframing it, we start fact checking it, and that reduces the intensity of that emotion.
Thank you so much, Lois. One more, what should I do when I do not know how to start to journal? So, what can people do in order to start journaling?
Okay, that's a lovely question. And I think that, there is no structure to journaling. I would say that, like I mentioned, it's expressive writing. So what you can do is get a journal, all right, and start writing down at least let's just say 1 or 2 paragraphs of whatever you do want to understand, what emotion you want to understand, what situation you wanted to understand. And once you have started writing, there's no structure, all right, like we're going through the unstructured pathway. So go ahead and write down whatever feelings you're having. Don't try to make sense of it immediately. Just go ahead and write down words, scribbles, try to write down sentences, and then reread it. All right. When you reread it, that's where you're trying to integrate this particular narrative into your circumstance, into your personality. And that's where you try to make sense of it. And then you start asking questions, which is, okay, this is what I was feeling. Why did I feel this? How do I get out of this? How did this happen? Who was involved? All of these questions. And that kind of directs your writing and your journaling a little bit more. And eventually, it leads to self-awareness, which really does help us in regulating and coming back to equilibrium.
Amazing. Yeah, that's very true. And I think it's amazing to start off unstructured, but if you are someone who does crave structure, then there are many journaling prompts that you can also use, right, Lewis?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of free resources on the internet, which kind of gives you an idea of where to start as well. So if any of you require it, it's available, whether it's related to a particular emotion or in general, whether it's related to self-esteem or self-concept, it's all available out there. So journal prompts are also really helpful. Yes.
We actually have a journaling section on the app, and obviously that's completely private to you. So you can use that section to start exploring what Lewis has been talking about. Okay, I think that wraps up our question. Lewis, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. We really appreciate all of your expertise. And thank you to everybody who joined. And I look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. We're also holding an event on the 26th of October in Dubai. So if you are in Dubai, please do keep an eye out on your emails. We will be sending some more details over, and we really, really look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you so much to Minty and the team, and thank you, Zuleika, as well, for aiding me through this entire process. And thank you to all the wonderful participants who have joined. And thank you for all your questions as well. It was really helpful, and I hope that I can also be of service to you. And feel free, don't hesitate to reach out to me as well.
Thank you.